This catastrophe shook the world, leaving an indelible mark on our history and raising profound questions about humanity's relationship with technology and the power of nature. It wasn't just a disaster. It was a nightmare that turned day into night. And if you want to know what happened at Chernobyl and the things it left behind, then stick around till the end of the video. But before we get started, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for more amazing content. With that said, let's explore the secrets of Chernobyl together. On the night of April 26, 1986, a test at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant went horribly wrong. At 1:23 a.m., reactor number 4 exploded, sending a plume of smoke and debris 6 miles into the air. The initial blast was equivalent to a magnitude 5.5 earthquake. Fire erupted, spreading radioactive contamination over the surrounding area. By the next morning, firefighters and helicopter pilots realized the severity of the situation. They were dealing with a disaster of unprecedented proportions, trying to extinguish flames that licked at the very essence of safety. The Soviets were slow to acknowledge the scale of the accident and initially attempted to downplay its significance. But within days, the truth became undeniable. On April 27th, tens of thousands of people were evacuated from the nearby city of Pripyat and other surrounding communities. Entire towns were emptied, their streets becoming instant ghost towns. Those who lived near the power plant were moved further away, but many still had no idea how much their lives would change. It wasn't until the world started questioning the Soviet silence that the authorities revealed the extent of the disaster. As word spread of the Chernobyl accident, the international community mobilized. On May 6, 1986, the United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting, marking the beginning of a global response to this unprecedented crisis. The world watched nervously as radiation levels rose and spread. As the dust settled, the true cost of the disaster began to emerge. 31 people had lost their lives during the initial explosion and cleanup efforts, but the true devastation was unseen. Radioactive particles drifted across Europe, contaminating vast areas of land and water. The invisible enemy, radiation, had infiltrated the homes and bodies of countless people. And what came next was perhaps the most terrifying: the silent killers. For those directly involved in the disaster, the aftermath brought both immediate and long-term horrors. Firefighters like Vasily Ignatenko, who breathed in the radioactive smoke, became the first victims of acute radiation poisoning. Within days, their blood showed alarming signs of damage. Nausea, vomiting, and excruciating burns marked the start of their horrific demise. In the coming weeks, their internal organs shut down one by one, succumbing to the invisible enemy. The silent killer didn't stop with the first responders. It reached out to every corner of the region. Farmers whose livestock ate contaminated grass found their cows, pigs, and chickens falling ill and dying. Fish in local rivers and lakes developed tumors and deformities, a chilling testament to the pollution. Families who stayed too long in their homes due to misinformation suffered the same fate. Children were born with birth defects, their cries of pain echoing the suffering caused by the disaster. One of the most haunting images of Chernobyl comes from a school in Pripyat. On April 26, 1986, a teacher named Rima Staroselskaya had just finished preparing lessons for the next day. When she heard a loud bang, thinking it was thunder, she continued working. Unknowingly, her final lesson plan was stained with radioactive particles that leaked from the nearby power plant. This desk became a symbol of the abrupt end to childhood in Pripyat. To this day, it serves as a reminder of the innocent lives that were disrupted by the disaster. In the immediate aftermath of the explosion, fear and confusion spread like wildfire. Rumors circulated through the town, heightening the sense of panic and uncertainty. People were unsure of the gravity of the situation, leading many to make ill-informed decisions. Some residents chose to stay, believing the disaster to be temporary, while others packed their bags, heading away from the town without understanding the true risks. For instance, many families packed essentials and left, leaving their elderly relatives behind. These split-second choices led to harrowing outcomes. Those who stayed were exposed to high levels of radiation. Those who left, either evacuated by the authorities or by their own choice, were confronted with the trauma of abandonment and the challenge of starting anew in unfamiliar places. And as the full scope of the disaster became clear, the ripple effects of those choices echoed throughout the years. The explosion at Chernobyl triggered a cascade of events that transcended national borders. Radiation doesn't recognize passports or political boundaries. It drifts on winds, altering courses with each gust. What began as a localized disaster quickly became a global concern. Countries across Europe went into overdrive, monitoring radiation levels in their territories and implementing strict measures. Farmers hastily destroyed contaminated crops, incinerating potatoes and slaughtering livestock that grazed on polluted fields. Homes and buildings were sealed off, transformed into tombs when the radiation levels inside exceeded safe limits. Citizens huddled indoors, their world shrinking to the four walls that offered a fragile shield against the invisible threat. And as days turned into weeks, the world grappled with a stark reality. The Cold War rivalry between the US and USSR, which had previously defined global politics, now took a backseat to a common enemy. For the first time in history, these two superpowers united, sharing data and resources to combat a threat that knew no ideological boundaries. It was a sobering moment. Humanity had always imagined its greatest challenges to be met with division and conflict. Now, here it was uniting in the face of a silent, invisible foe. And yet amidst this horror, a glimmer of hope emerged. The world witnessed an outpouring of support and solidarity. Doctors from around the globe, driven by compassion and medical ethics, volunteered to help. They set aside their differences, converging on Chernobyl to assist those most affected by the disaster. Amidst the chaos, these medical professionals embodied the best of humanity. They provided treatment and care to the victims, sharing both their expertise and empathy. At a time when fear and uncertainty dominated, these doctors stood as beacons of hope. Their presence served as a potent reminder of the unifying power of compassion in the face of adversity. In the aftermath of Chernobyl, as the world reeled from the implications of this catastrophic event, a sense of unease settled over people's lives. Radio became a constant companion, tuned to emergency frequencies, delivering updates on radiation levels and safety guidelines. Every crackle of the radio brought with it a mixture of hope and fear. Each new announcement, whether reassuring or alarming, became a part of daily life. Schools and workplaces shut down, throwing routines into disarray. Children's laughter was replaced by an eerie silence. Fields once bustling with activity lay dormant, their produce deemed unsafe to consume. The economic impact rippled far beyond the immediate vicinity. The world witnessed the shutdown of industries, the halting of trade, and the sudden loss of livelihoods. Entire economies shuddered, grappling with the implications of a disaster that had defied their previous notions of risk. In the years since Chernobyl, the world has grappled with the implications of this disaster. The shadow of the disaster continues to loom large over the region. Areas surrounding the power plant remain largely uninhabited, transformed into what we call exclusion zones. These zones serve as both a physical and metaphorical barrier between humanity and the lingering effects of the disaster. But life, as it always does, has found a way to endure. Animals have returned to the exclusion zones, creating a haunting yet resilient ecosystem. Wild boars, wolves, deer, and even birds have made their homes in this radioactive landscape. Their presence is a testament to the tenacity of life, yet also a reminder of the challenges they face in surviving and thriving in such an environment. Moreover, the Chernobyl disaster raised critical questions about nuclear safety and energy policy. It led to heightened scrutiny of nuclear power plants worldwide and contributed to a shift in global energy strategies. Countries reevaluated their nuclear programs, focusing on stricter safety measures and alternative energy sources. The disaster also had profound implications for the individuals directly affected by it. Thousands of people suffered from radiation-induced illnesses, particularly thyroid cancer. Medical services in the aftermath were instrumental in treating these cases and raising awareness about the long-term health effects of radiation exposure. Finally, the Chernobyl disaster had a significant impact on popular culture. It inspired books, films, and documentaries, that explored the human, environmental, and political dimensions of the tragedy. The event continues to captivate the public imagination, serving as a cautionary tale of the potential dangers of nuclear technology. Today, the exclusion zone around Chernobyl is a place of somber reflection. Visitors can explore abandoned towns and the power plant itself, bearing witness to the enduring legacy of the disaster. It's a journey into the past that serves as a reminder of the challenges of the Cold War era and the importance of nuclear safety. When most people think about Chernobyl, it's likely the image of a burning nuclear reactor that comes to mind. On April 26, 1986, at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant near the Ukrainian capital of Kiev, a power surge caused the core of reactor number 4 to overheat and melt through the reactor vessel, causing a steam explosion that blew the top off the reactor and sent clouds of radioactive debris into the air. But the horror of Chernobyl didn't end when the fires stopped burning. In the days, weeks, and years that followed, the tragedy evolved. No longer just a nuclear accident, but a slow-moving curse. It crept into lungs, into cells, into DNA, and into the lives of those who didn't ask to be heroes, victims, or experiments. Here are 5 stories, 5 true events, each one a wound carved into history, each one harder to forget than the last. 1. The death of the first responders. It was 1:23 a.m. when the night shift crew of Chernobyl's Reactor 4 noticed an alarming drop in the reactor's power output. By 1:57 a.m., they had discovered what was wrong, a partial meltdown in the reactor's core. But instead of reporting the problem, the plant's operators worked desperately to hide it, initiating a series of flawed decisions that would only make things worse. The plant's chief engineer, Anatoly Dyatlov, wanted to carry out a safety test, one not on the schedule, but one he thought could potentially help them cover up their mistake. And so, with 6 workers, he began to siphon off water from the plant's cooling pond to another location. He believed the test could be completed in 10 minutes, though he ended up taking 1 hour and 45 minutes. During that time, the temperature of the reactor's core continued to rise, and without the cooling water, it overheated, leading to the explosion at 1:23 a.m. Anatoly and his team were all killed instantly by the force of the blast, which threw their bodies 1,000 feet through the air. Their remains were never recovered. Their sacrifice bought only precious moments for the rest of the plant's workers and personnel. 2. Mutations in animals. In the immediate aftermath of the Chernobyl disaster, some 31 people died, most of them plant workers. Many more suffered severe radiation poisoning, and those who survived were forever branded as outcasts, shunned by society and left to deal with the long-term effects of radiation exposure. But the silent toll of the Chernobyl disaster was even greater than anyone realized, because while the human body can heal itself, nature cannot. In the decades since the Chernobyl disaster, there has been a disturbing increase in genetic mutations among animals living near the site. Take, for example, the so-called coneheads, thousands of fish found floating on the surface of the river near the disaster zone, all suffering from mutated skulls that resulted in their premature deaths. Similarly, in the forests around Chernobyl, deer with extra legs and cows with no heads have been spotted, as well as wolves with 2 faces. Even insects like the common field grasshopper have suffered. In the years after the disaster, the sex ratio of the species became so distorted that male grasshoppers outnumbered females 17-1. These mutations aren't occurring by chance. They're the result of radiation exposure. And researchers believe that as animals continue to reproduce, passing on their mutated genes to future generations, the deformities will only become more pronounced. And the scary thing is, we don't know where it will stop. 3. The Chernobyl children. After the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, the Soviet government evacuated the surrounding area, creating a 19-mile exclusion zone around the power plant. But one group of children was left behind. In the weeks immediately following the explosion, thousands of children across the region developed acute radiation sickness, or ARS. With symptoms like nausea, diarrhea, hair loss, burns, and organ failure, the illness is often fatal. But it also causes long-lasting damage to the immune system, meaning that those who survive become extremely vulnerable to other illnesses, making them susceptible to infections that most people develop immunity to. And this is the situation facing the thousands of children who were left behind after the Chernobyl disaster. The evacuation order did not include children under 18, and so tens of thousands were forced to stay in the contaminated area, leaving them to suffer the consequences of radiation poisoning. Though it was too dangerous for adults to remain in the area, children were allowed to visit their homes for short periods under adult supervision. And it was during these visits that many of them were unknowingly exposed to high levels of radiation. One such child was Nadia, who at the age of 11 received a whole body dose of radiation, equivalent to between 6 and 8 chest x-rays. Doctors treated her for cancer and gave her a bone marrow transplant. But before the procedure, they told her parents to say goodbye. As her condition worsened, Nadia asked why she was being given so much medicine. Her father lied to protect her, telling her that it was to treat a cold. But when he saw the look of confusion on her face, he broke down and told her the truth. Her mother then told her that if she was brave, she would get better. Nadia did pull through, but at a cost. She needed regular blood transfusions. Her white blood cell count was almost zero, leaving her unable to fight off infection. Her doctors told her parents that she might not live to see her 20th birthday. But Nadia defied the odds, though she still suffers from the effects of radiation poisoning, including frequent bouts of cancer. 4. The abandoned town of Pripyat. Pripyat was once a thriving community of 50,000 people. It was home to schools, parks, supermarkets, and swimming pools. It was a typical Soviet city, except for one detail. It was built to serve the personnel working at the nearby Chernobyl nuclear power plant. So it was here that hundreds of families lived out their lives until April 26, 1986, when the Chernobyl nuclear disaster forced the entire population to abandon their homes and flee. The town was evacuated within a 36-hour period, with residents given only a few minutes to pack their belongings and leave. They never returned. Today, Pripyat is a ghost town, frozen in time to the day it was abandoned. Homes are in various states of disrepair, with walls caved in and roofs caved in. Furniture and clothes litter the streets. Food rots in open refrigerators. Toys lie strewn across the floor in homes and apartments. Books lay open at desks and chairs as if the townspeople simply vanished into thin air. Even scarier, the buildings are saturated with radiation, which means that visitors can only spend short amounts of time inside them. As a result, the town remains largely unexplored, though recent expeditions have uncovered some amazing sights, like stray dogs wandering through the streets, horses running loose, or the perfectly preserved town square. 5. The aftermath of the liquidators. In the immediate aftermath of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, there were no emergency services to speak of. So the Soviet government mobilized firefighters, soldiers, and workers to clean up the mess. They were called liquidators. Working around the clock in 12-hour shifts, the liquidators labored to contain the disaster and prevent the spread of radiation. Some worked to extinguish the fires burning on the roof of reactor number 4. Others spent weeks spraying the area with water to keep the radioactive steam from escaping into the atmosphere. They worked in conditions that most people would find unbearable, spending hours each day in areas with radiation levels up to 16 times higher than the lethal dose. When their shifts were over, they were too afraid to return home for fear of contaminating their families. And so they slept in barracks on the outskirts of the city, all the while unaware that they were being exposed to high levels of radiation. Within weeks, their health began to deteriorate. They started getting sick with fevers, weakness, and fatigue. Within months, their immune systems were completely compromised, leaving them vulnerable to deadly diseases like leukemia and cancer. To date, 800 liquidators have died from radiation exposure. Others have lived long enough to witness the birth of grandchildren, though most of them will die prematurely, having exchanged their futures for our safety. And that's all for today. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.